The heads of the Metropolitan Police, MI5 and the National Crime Agency have together warned the government that early prison releases could be detrimental to public safety and risk undermining confidence in policing and in criminal justice.
And in a separate letter, police chiefs have said they'll need more money to control criminals who would previously have been in prison. Now, it's not what you wanted to talk about this morning, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook. So why don't we just get that out of the way first, the issue that you're on to talk about. 1.5 million houses is your pledge by the end of this Parliament. You want to speed up the planning process. If I live in a house and I don't want anybody to ride roughshod over planning rules locally, what can you say to reassure me?
Morning, Susanna. Nothing we're announcing today will allow people to ride roughshod over planning rules. We've made, over recent months, as you know, a series of changes to our planning system. We've overhauled the National Planning Policy framework to make it more pro-growth, to release more land into the system. And those reforms are starting to come through now. You'll know that the OBR scored the impact of those particular changes, a £6.8 billion addition to the UK economy, 0.2% of GDP. Today, we're announcing, as part of our plan for change, a package of measures designed to streamline the planning system, specifically for small and medium-sized house builders. We've got a system, as you know, which is overly reliant on a small number of large volume developers. We need to diversify the housing market. We need smaller house builders back in the game. In the 80s, they used to build nearly 40% of all homes. Today, it's under 10%. So the package we're announcing today, a series of measures, access to land, access to finance, and easing the regulatory burden for those smaller house builders. OK,
Matthew Pennycook, you've been on this programme many times talking about your ambition, 1.5 million homes this Parliament, new towns. You can't do that on the cheap. And it's not just about the private sector building homes. It's also about having a planning system which functions, the infrastructure in place to support new houses and new towns. The spending review is coming up in a week or so's time. We know that Angela Rayner has been worrying that real-term cuts for your department won't help you build those houses. Are you confident you are going to get the money in the spending review to deliver the 1.5 million homes in the new towns this Parliament, or is that still something that you are arguing with the Treasury about?
Well, you're right, Ed, that government does need to allocate funding to some of these measures. New towns are a good case in point, although I would highlight that we want to ensure that private investment can flow into new towns. We want to make them an investable proposition. On the spending review, obviously, I'm going to say I'm not going to comment on those negotiations taking place. I'd say in terms, and I just point you back to...
Well, if you say that, Matthew, the front page of The Guardian says Rachel Reeves is in a standoff over public service cuts with your department. So at the moment, it's being reported the Treasury isn't giving you the money you need for infrastructure, for planning, for the public contribution to building those private houses. So if you don't comment, I'm afraid we have to take it as read that at the moment you've not got a deal and therefore you're not going to get the money.
No, that's not what I said, Ed. And you will know from your time as a government minister that I obviously can't speculate on internal government negotiations around the spending review. What I would point your viewers to, though, is as a sort of proof point, if you like, of the seriousness with which the Chancellor takes social and affordable housing delivery in this country, is the £800 million in-year top-up that she allocated to the Affordable Homes programme, the extra £2 billion in bridging to the future grant funding programme that will come out of the spending review just a few months ago. I think that's a signal of the government's intent when it comes to social and affordable housing and other changes coming through.
And I would point out to you that if the Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Minister has a memo, whoever did it, leaked to the newspapers saying that you need tax rises, which the Treasury is not at the moment putting in place, or else you are not going to build the 1.5 million homes, and Angela Rayner says she is not confident you're going to get there, that tells you that at the moment there is a funding gap between what you need to deliver the plans you're talking about today and what the Treasury is currently coming up with.
Well, I'm not... Just repeat what I've said, Ed.
You're not going to comment on that either.
I'm not going to comment on speculation around the spending review, and I think that's an entirely reasonable position your viewers will understand.
That's true, but there was a leak inquiry underway because there was a leak. There was a leak of a memo which said we need tax rises to put in place the spending for your department to build the homes. So if you don't comment, I'm afraid we just have to take what we see.
Well, you can take the investment that's already been made over recent months into things like social and affordable housing as proof that the government understands that additional government investment is needed to meet our plan for change milestone of 1.5 million homes. As I say, we've already got £800 million top-up to the in-year to the Affordable Homes Programme, that £2 billion bridge. Those aren't insignificant funds. But our plan has always been a comprehensive plan for reform of the system, to diversify the housing market. That's what our announcement is doing today, getting SME builders back in the game, level on the playing field. So we need all of these parts to come together, absolutely. As I've always said, it's a set menu, it's not a la carte. Everything needs to come into place to meet that very stretching target. And we've never been anything other than candid about the fact it is an extremely stretching target.
Yeah. Right, let's go from people's homes to the Home Office. Sir Keir Starmer's plan to release prisoners early could lead to a net detriment in public safety. People need safe streets, don't they? And the plan to reduce the number of prisoners who go into prison and the plan on continually releasing prisoners early from their sentence is causing enormous concern, not just to the public at large, but to the heads of the Metropolitan Police, MI5 and National Crime Agency. What are you going to do about that?
Well, what I would say to that, Susanna, is there is a real risk to public safety posed by the prospect of a prison system collapsing. And that is what we inherited from the previous Conservative government. And it is nothing short. If you let the
convicted criminals out and the police are telling you that that is going to contribute to a net detriment to public safety, then the argument that the prisons might collapse at some point in the future isn't quite as strong as the argument that our streets are not safer as a result.
If I could just finish this point, and you're more than welcome to come back and challenge me. It's not at some point in the future. We inherited a situation which I was about to say is nothing short of criminal neglect, in my view, in terms of what the Tories handed us. A prison system on the verge of collapse. You will know, and your viewers will know, the previous government only managed to add 500 places to the prison estate in their time of office at the same time as sentences lengthened. And that has left us with a situation where 3,000 people are being added to the prison.
We are where we are. You can blame the previous government. The point is, right now, you are the party in government. So what they say to you, the police have separately told you, they will need an extra £300 million in the spending review to control the additional offending population at large. It seems a reasonable request, doesn't it?
Well, I'd say two things. I was just going to finish that point. Sentencing reform is necessary because of the situation we're in. We are building prison places at pace, so we've already added 2,400 since we came into power. But we can't build our way out of this crisis. Sentencing reform is essential. The changes we've made will ensure that the most dangerous offenders stay inside. And we are allocating additional funds to ensure that it is taken forward in a proper way. For example, £700 million in additional funding to the probation service to ensure they can tag and monitor offenders in the community. Now, the police, I don't begrudge those police chiefs for a second making representations around the spending review. That's entirely understandable. But what I would say on police funding in general is we are backing the police with up to £17.6 billion worth of funding. That's an additional £1.2 billion.
So you're telling the police, use the money you've got because there's no more on its way?
I'm, again, not going to comment on what comes out of the spending review. What I do want to convey to your listeners is we are backing the police with funding already. As I said, £17.6 billion, an increase in £1.2 billion. And there is money specifically being allocated to, for example, the probation service to ensure that the sentencing reforms can be carried in a way that ensures public safety, ensures that we can tag and monitor these offenders in the community.
But Matthew Pennycook, it is very unusual 10 days before a spending review for police chiefs to go public with this kind of warning that if they don't get the funding, they won't be able to keep the streets safe and to meet the government's commitments. You would agree with me, wouldn't you? It's unusual to see this kind of intervention from police leaders.
I defer to you, Ed, as to how many times this has happened in the past. I don't think it is unusual for people to make representations, both privately and publicly, around a spending review. And to highlight their desire for more funding. But what I do want to convey is...
I've seen a letter like this for a very long time.
And the letter was sent prior to the sentencing review, is my understanding.
No, but there's also another letter which is in the Times today, which is right here and right now about the spending review. I mean, all I'm saying to you is it's unusual for the police leaders to feel this worried that they go public.
But I can again come back to what is the alternative? We had to act because we are heading, due to the inheritance that we were given by the previous Conservative government, we are heading back to a situation of zero capacity in our prisons. If the prison system collapses, that will have real impacts. Courts will have to suspend trials, police will have to cease arrests, it will lead to a breakdown in law and order. So we have to reform sentencing. We're doing so, as I said, in a way that ensures public safety, the most dangerous offenders staying inside.
Okay.
But it's not like we're not allocating any funds. An additional £700 million is going to the probation service to ensure we can tag and monitor these offenders.
OK, Matthew Pennycook, Housing Minister, thanks very much indeed. Can I just, before we let you go, everyone struggled a little earlier because Keir Starmer seems to be changing this way and that, responding to local elections or public demands, whatever it is. Could you just sum up in a sentence currently what is the theme of this government?
Well, the theme of this government is delivering our plan for change, delivering for working people. That's what we're doing. That's what we will do in terms of today, our announcement on further reforms to the planning system to get SME house builders back in the game, building the homes in local communities that people need and contributing to local economies.
And
that will benefit working people across the country.
And the plan for change includes keeping the winter fuel allowance?
The position on the winter fuel allowance is very clear. The Prime Minister has said... Well,
Matthew Pennycook, I've got to say to you, the one thing is definitely not as very clear. Whatever else is not very clear.
Well, I think the Prime Minister has made very clear his ambition that when fiscal circumstances allow, we want to look again at those eligibility criteria to ensure that more pensioners receive the winter fuel payment.
Thank you very much, Matthew
I'm not sure that was the
Pennycook.
clearest answer ever, but totally understand.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for you. Thank you for talking to us this morning.
Delivering the plan for change, but that plan for change may change.